It's live streaming. It should be going live. He waits till Kevin goes live.
Here, yes. I don't think Dave's going to be here. He told me he wasn't going to be here for the meeting. Something in New York. Someone had something in New York City. So I think Kevin must know. Community development, WZ, is she in that? Or no? No, I didn't either. Well, Dave said it was supposed to be this week, but we were going to leave it empty.
So we're ready to begin?
Yeah.
Get some information.
Yeah, he
But
did,
it
yeah.
wasn't.
Sometimes they have the thing.
I'd like to call this March 21st session of the Holyoke City Council to order. The clerk will call the roll and record those members present.
Bartley. Bresnahan. Graney.
Here.
Jordan.
Here.
Leahy.
Present.
LeBrun Martinez.
Here.
Lisi. Lopez.
Here.
McGee. McGivern.
Here.
Roman.
Here.
Sullivan.
Here.
Tallman.
Here.
Bacon.
Here.
Valentine.
Here.
All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
God bless America.
And the City of Holyoke.
And the City Council.
Mr. President,
Yes.
if we could, we have a very special guest here today. If we could present a proclamation. I think we have to take this out of order, suspend necessary rules.
Second.
Correct. I thought, didn't we already pass this or no?
We did,
Or is it-
yes.
Okay.
Last year.
Right. Okay, as you know, happy to take this up at this time. As you know, we have the privilege of recognizing a number of very distinguished guests, and certainly at this council meeting this evening is no exception. This evening, we have Callie Kavanaugh, who is just a phenomenal basketball player, as we all know and have recognized in the past. I think the last time she may or may not have been here was around 1,000 points. And I think we're well over 1,700 at this point. So we would like, if Councilor Leahy would be kind enough to escort our esteemed guest up, we would really appreciate it. And she'll be present for a proclamation and a few words from our esteemed guest, as well, escorted by Councilor Leahy. Callie, welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. As Kevin said, last year in her junior year was a very exciting year. In fact, I remember it was a very cold, dark winter night that I came home from work. I took my tie off. I looked over my daughters, and they were kind of very still on the couch. I go, we're not staying here. We have to go see history to be made. And unfortunately, it wasn't in Holyoke. We had to drive up to Amherst, but that's okay, because we stopped at Applebee's along the way, and they had enjoyed that. But that night was one of the most amazing nights that I've seen. A person who's not very selfish, a person's a team player, a person who goes on in totally a team effort. She scored her 1,000th point against Amherst. It was absolutely amazing to watch. But having said all this, I mean, I was just reading the facts and the stats earlier today. It's extremely impressive. So in 53 games in her high school career, Callie scored 1,000 points. Okay, that was her junior year. So her senior year, she comes and she scores 1,773 points. She averaged 23 points with 15 rebounds. Twice she scored 37 points in a game, once versus Abbas and one versus West Springfield. You know, she had her choices of a plethora of schools, not like me. However, she had Fairleigh, Dickinson University, Hofstra, Fairfield. What Callie decided to do is a typical thing a Holyoke person would do. Pick a school in the South where it's nice and warm. And she did it because of a couple things. One is because, as I read, it was a quote that was warm. And also she believed in the coach. The new coach down there is a former assistant coach, and she is going on to do bigger and better things. Now, I wanted to talk to several people. One is I talked to my son Brendan and just asked him a thought, and he said, she's the bomb. Well, I go, do you have any other information besides that? He goes, no, she's the bomb. Then I also talked to Mary Kay Glasheen, who is one of your teammates, and she echoed what Brendan had said, but she also said that she's the most unselfish player. So when you look at these points and you think, unselfish, she goes, if you're open, she's giving you the ball, and she's going to expect you to make it, because that's what she does. She brings the whole team up. And having said all of this, the great night that we saw when she scored her 1,000 point, it was a three-pointer. It was intense. It was sick. So one of the things I just wanted to say in closing is Florida International University has gained a Hoyoker. We certainly aren't losing a Purple Knight. She might be becoming a Panther, but she'll still bleed purple. Having said all this, myself, and it was unanimously voted upon at the City Council, I'm so proud to give you this proclamation on behalf of all of us. So come on up and take it.
I would like to thank the city of Holyoke for acknowledging me for this milestone. And I'd like to thank my coach, Tommy Brassel, and Coach James G. for getting to me where I am now. I also like to thank my family for always being the most supportive people I could really ask for. They couldn't really be better than that. Coming to every game, no matter what the situation was, they could have been busy or dealt with other stuff, but they never failed to make it to a game. And yeah, thank you very much for this award.
Give item 1 and 2.
Mr.
Well,
President.
that was great. That was really special. And yes, Counselor Lopez.
No, I just wanna let the city council know that now we have uniform, a large council.
Oh, very good. Yeah,
Thank
must have
you.
been a sale. Yeah,
Yeah,
nice.
special.
J.C. Penney.
Oh, very good. And we should note the Holyoke store will be staying open.
Yes.
The next J.C. Penney closure, so I'm glad to see that you were able to take advantage of a recent sale. We have a couple items laid on the table, ladies and gentlemen, and the first one of which is item 1, which is the Shannon Community Safety Initiative Grant. And, Mr. Chairman, as best as you recall, we had this tabled, let's see, for a reason. If you recall, let's see here, this was, city was awarded FY17 Community Safety Initiative and the grant in the amount of $413,000 to support the Hoyoke Community Chicopee Community Safety Initiative. There's a letter from the mayor approving it as well as the chief of police. Does this ring a bell? Oh,
Yeah, it's no quorum.
so at that time in the meeting,
Thankful for the city clerk now.
yes. So we had to table it because we lacked enough votes to be able to pass it because it does require 10 votes.
Make a motion to take it off the table.
Motion's been made and seconded to remove item number 1 from the table. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, so moved. I'm sorry, Councilor LeBron
Yeah,
Martinez.
just from, I would need to abstain, and that's why probably the vote, that night I had to abstain. so.
It was also me too. And
All right. So Councilor Leahy and LeBron Martinez will be abstaining from this vote, so, all right, we're back down to close to numbers, but we'll be all right, I'm sure. Here we go. The Committee on Finance, to whom was referred an order that in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A, the City Council hereby accepts the provisions of the Shannon Community Safety Initiative Grant, authorizes the establishment of a fund or other method appropriate for the accounting of the receipts and expenditures of all resources associated with the administration of said grant, have considered the same, recommend that the order be adopted. Councilors McGee, Tallman, and Vacan. The chairman has made a motion that we receive and adopt.
Pass first
And
reading.
pass the
Second.
first reading. Under discussion, Councilor McGee.
Now that I've been given my cue, yeah, we had to table it because everyone ran out to go watch March Madness or something. I forgot what it was. But we were shorthanded. So in essence, due to certain people who have to abstain due to the conflict, we ran low on numbers. So don't have my notes in front of me, but it was for 413. As we all know, we receive this every year. We have unfortunately seen a decline in the revenue coming in, and this is a 13% decline this year. But what it is the city receives it, being the police department, then they allocate it out to different groups, which would be the Boys and Girls Club, the Sheriff's Office, and so on and so forth. So no match to it, 413 to be given out to all different departments in order to do what they have to do.
Okay. Any questions, Councilor McGivern?
During the Finance Committee meeting, one of the questions they asked the chief was if he was using it to replace full-time positions, and his answer was no, which is good. He was using it to supplement the police department services itself, therefore not putting us into a position of having to replace officers or benefits or unemployment down the road if it ever dries up completely.
Okay, very good. Any other thoughts or comments? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of passing the first reading? Aye. Opposed? So moved.
Pass the second reading?
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to pass the second reading. Any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll. A yes vote is in favor of adopting the committee report and accepting the provisions of the Shannon Community Safety Initiative Grant. A no vote is to deny it.
Valentine,
Yes.
Graney,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Lisi,
Yes.
Lopez,
Yes.
McGee,
Yes.
McGivern,
Yes,
Roman,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Tallman,
Yes.
Bacon.
Yes.
11 yeas,
Aye.
two abstain.
Thank you. By your vote, you have approved the acceptance of those provisions.
Mr. President,
Yes.
can we take out of order number 8 off the agenda?
8? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Second?
Let me put this here. Motion's been made and seconded to suspend the rules to go to item number 8. And I believe there's also going to be,
Mr. President, if I may, with the maker's
24B?
orders,
And
just take up,
24B?
again, exactly, I was gonna just do that. Item
24B.
24B, please,
You have 24B,
as a
please.
package.
okay. Yeah, let's just gather ourselves here for a moment, and then we'll take these up. Actually, we're not on that committee. That's a 3-person committee. So there is 2 others. Yeah. Okay, very good. Okay. Counselors Leahy and Roman make a motion that we suspend the rules to take up item number 8 and item number 24B at this time, and to take them up both as a package. All in favor of that?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Item number 8 is a communication from Dr. Zweig, who, as you know, is the receiver and superintendent of schools. Letter regarding the follow-up for information to the feasibility study and schematic design required by the MSBA for all projects. Item number 24B is a report from the committee on the Joint Committee on the City Council and the School Committee, to whom was referred an order that the City Council invite the school superintendent to discuss the potential of new middle schools for the city. Have considered the same, recommend that that order has been complied with. And, okay, and that's signed off by Councilors both Roman and Sullivan. So that's, as you know, is a three-person committee. So 2 out of 3 will do the trick on that committee report. So the motion is to adopt both of these, or receive and adopt both?
Yes, Mr. President, and then after that, I'd like to take up item 24A if I could.
Okay, very good. So under discussion of 8 and 24B, and Councilor Roman.
Mr. President, yes, both of these items are going to come up on actual votes for 24A. So in the Joint Committee, the School Committee and City Council, Councilor McGee, we had Dr. Zreich, Mr. Soto from the School Department, that's Chief Financial Officer, and we had a discussion around exactly allocations of these funds with regards to having a feasibility study and sending a statement of interest to the Massachusetts School Building Authority to explore the fact that in Holyoke, we would like to explore looking into the new model that Dr. Zreich and his team have done a great job outreaching with regards to the new structure and look of our school systems. So this money and feasibility study originally back in the day was from McMahon School. We're reallocating that and approving now to look at Lawrence School for a potential of having middle schools back in the city of Holyoke. So that's going towards that model and look, and this would be the first step in that process. This follow-up item, item number 8 in our committee, Councilor Sullivan, myself, and Councilor LeBron Martinez were asking around that number. How did the school department come up with $800,000 as that amount needed for this feasibility study? And this was that in-depth detailed as to how they came up with that number. They cannot physically go out for RFPs for requests for a company to do a feasibility study. So this was an average, and they provided us with the list of all of the other communities and how much their feasibility studies cost and how the state MSBA determines those feasibility studies. So with that, our committee felt that this was complied with. We want to just receive these motions, and then with 24A, have this body approve both the statement of interest from the city of Holyoke, from our body saying that we would like to proceed forward with this, as well as approving those allocations of those monies that were from McMahon to then now go to this feasibility study. Thank you, Mr. President.
Very good. Any other discussion? Okay. Hearing none, on the motion that these 2 items having been received and approved, that they're been complied with, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to suspend the rules and take up item 24A.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded
Second.
to suspend the rules to now take up item number 24A. All in favor of that?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. 24A reads as follows. The committee on, the Joint Committee on the City Council and School Committee, to whom was referred an order that a correspondence from Mayor Morse regarding a vote to submit a statement of interest with the Massachusetts School Building Authority has been considered and recommended that the statement of interest and appropriation be approved and adopted. That's signed off by Councilors Roman and Sullivan, who do make up a quorum of the committee. It should be noted that I believe attached to this somewhere is going to be an authorization to appropriate $800,000 for the purposes of funding a feasibility study, and I'm told that we have eligibility potential to get 80% of that back from the state. And I just want to be clear from the clerk and the law department, do I have before me now the most current language that we're supposed to accept, so all of that is as we need it to be? Wonderful. Thank you. All right. So is there a motion to adopt the committee report and approve? We're going to have to do 2 readings, so to pass the first reading, since we're looking at an appropriation.
Receive, approve, and pass the first reading.
And to grant the authorization and approve the statement of interest. And that has been seconded. Under discussion, I'll lead off with the chairman, Mr. Roman.
Yes, thank you. I pretty much explained it in our previous comments. And again, Mr. President, you were accurate. It's an 80-20 reimbursement rate from the state. And so in our committee discussion, we had heard that other communities don't get that percentage. This is a good opportunity for the city of Holyoke. What better way to send that positive message? And I think my newest co-chair, school committee member Burks from Ward 3 is the new co-chair for the joint committee, and he's here this evening. So I thank him for his diligence and the school committee members and Dr. Reich and his team. So I just like to see this passed. Thank you.
Okay. I would like to recognize also, I see a couple of our other school committee members are here from Ward 1 and Ward 4 as well, so I want to recognize them as well. Councilor Lopez.
Mr. President, from where are we taking the $800,000? From where is now?
Effectively, it's I would assume it's going to be, I would consider it a bond authorization effectively, but I don't see that in the form of a bond authorization
So
from.
I would like to
from
make
the
an
mayor.
amendment that will be very specific like that,
Yeah.
please.
Let me read it. I hope, I'm just going to read the third page down. Let me just take a look, I'll compare. Right. Okay, thank you.
We can also make a motion to suspend the necessary rules if we need to ask Dr. Reich for more clarification.
Sure. If that, we may have to go there in a minute. We may want to just ask him some questions anyways. Yeah. So what this language, and I will read it, it's only one paragraph, just so we're all clear. One of the things that you are voting to appropriate funding for the feasibility study reads as follows. The City of Holyoke appropriate the amount of $800,000 for the purpose of paying costs of a feasibility study to study issues at the H.B. Lawrence School located at 156 Cabot Street, including the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto, and for which the City of Holyoke may be eligible for a grant from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, said amount to be expended under the direction of the School Building Committee. To meet this appropriation, the City Council, with the approval of the mayor, is authorized to borrow said amount under and pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, or pursuant to any other enabling authority. The City of Holyoke acknowledges that the MSBA's grant program is a non-entitlement discretionary program based on need, as determined by the MSBA, and any cost the City of Holyoke incurs in excess of any grant approved by or received from the MSBA shall be the sole responsibility of the city, and that the amount of borrowing authorized pursuant to this vote shall be reduced by any grant amount set forth in the feasibility study agreement that may be executed between the City of Holyoke and the MSBA. So this vote would empower them to spend up to $800,000 for this purpose. And I assume at some point, maybe the chairman or somebody else will end up landing on how we got to $800,000. I asked that question. I never got a scientific answer to that. All I got was, this is what other communities have kind of spent. That's about as close as I got to an answer. But Councilor Sullivan.
Yeah, and to that point, and so it's clear to the public out there also, even though we appropriate $800,000, the reimbursement piece is very key in this. 80%, that'd be $640,000 coming back. Our actual cost on that would be $160. The way the numbers were arrived is it's looking at based on what other cities have spent. Other cities have also spent considerably less than that, and we would have a equal decrease in our participatory share. It could be south of the $160,000 as well. But that's our real out-of-pocket costs are only 20% of that number. And I think that's important for everybody to grasp that.
Right, and of course, you're absolutely right, and that assumes that the SBA comes through with the money. But of course, they couch it by saying, we may or may not give you the money, but we hope, and it's I would assume they're counting on what we will get it. Let's hope we do. We're still at first reading on that. Any other discussion? Counselor Bacon.
I just have a question, because it was referred that there would be a shift of monies that were allocated to McMahon School that would move from there to Lawrence. And I know that the school committee doesn't have authority in these matters anymore, but I was just wondering if the school committee is aware and on board with the shift.
Counselor Roman, can you just explain that a little bit more?
Yes, thank you. So, and I actually watched the school committee meeting, so I watched the school committee members actually discuss this in their committee. The superintendent had an outside organization, actually in association with the Massachusetts Building Authority, examine all of the Holyoke School properties and rank them from best to worst based on, construction, visibility, actual insides, and which schools needed the most, and they ranked them highest to lowest. And I went to that meeting, as a lot of the school committee members did, and actually the bottom of the bottom were Lawrence, Peck, and I forget the third one off the top of my head, but those were the schools that were identified with the most need. And so this feasibility study changing with the Massachusetts Building Authority from McMahon to Lawrence was around this new model, looking at all the schools and saying, hey, we want to build and go to this new K through 5, 2 middle school models in the city of Holyoke, and then the 2 high schools, and looking and identifying Lawrence as that entry point, saying that Lawrence is the building, and Lawrence is one of the most identified buildings in the city of Holyoke with the most need for either replacement, renovation, whatever we decide. So the school committee members actually had a really deep conversation about that was brought up on their end, and they all agreed with Dr. Reich that Lawrence was the better starting entry point for that. This feasibility study could come back and say, reuse Lawrence, get rid of it, replace it, but that would be the area that it would begin the studies on. So just to answer my colleague's question, yes, the school committee was aware, they had those discussions, and they agreed to have the feasibility study and this allocation be appropriated for Lawrence.
Thank you.
Any others? Counselor Sullivan.
Yeah, could we also address a quick question to either Dr. Stryker or
Sure.
Anthony?
Yeah,
Motion to suspend the
Second.
motion to suspend the rules to allow Dr. Reich or any representative of the school department that would like to address us on this matter. All in favor of that?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Dr. Reich, I believe we have a question for you, if you'd be kind enough to take to the microphone. Just make sure it's on, please.
It's a fairly quick one. Just one of the questions raised was regarding the SBA approving the funds. Have any of the other cities that have requested or gone through this funding process ever been denied?
My experience with this, my understanding is as long as the process moves forward as planned, and as long as the appropriation is there, that no, I mean, we would get an 80% reimbursement. That's been made pretty clear. The only time it's been denied is when the city or the municipality doesn't agree to move forward. But we've been given assurances that, and everything I've heard from them and their board is that as long as there's support in the city, that we would get the reimbursement of 80%.
Okay.
And the funding promise to Holyoke.
That's good. Counselor Lopez.
Do you have a timetable by when this study will be done, or you don't have it?
It's hard to say. I mean, it all depends on, we'd have to get the building committee. There's a building committee that the mayor has to appoint. I believe there is a existing committee. I'm not sure if it needs to have new members added to it, but as we'd have to get that formed. They'd have to have input. It's hard to say. I mean, obviously I'd like to move this forward as soon as possible, but these projects take a long time and is subject to a lot of back and forth. And just so you know, like tonight's approval is not approving the projects.
Right.
And there's certainly a lot more engagement with the city council moving forward and the building committee to get your approval on all aspects of this.
You would need a supplemental authorization of the council to approve the other bonding.
That's correct.
I don't think you can build a school or two on
That's right.
$800,000.
That's exactly right.
Can you?
Okay. Do you have a basic timeline at this point? Like, I mean, obviously, there's all these what-ifs, but in the event
Yeah.
everything went according to Dr. Reich's master plan, what would be the groundbreaking time, and then when would be a theoretical opening?
You know, realistically, especially if we're talking about 2 buildings, we're really looking at minimum. I mean, I think minimum 4 to 5 years.
Okay.
From start to finish.
Okay.
And that would be aggressive. So in a perfect world, I'd love to see it in 4 years. To say that that's realistic, I'm skeptical that it would.
Just so people at home have a sense of the
Right,
timeline.
right, and, yep.
Any other questions for Dr. Zreik? Okay. Gladys, did you?
I don't have a question, but I just want to remind ourselves that we had sort of a project like this with Holyoke High when we had to commit to something similar and that we would reimburse 80% of our fundings again. And
Right.
we actually saved some money and we really didn't get to spend it all, if you recall that. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, great. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right. Okay, counselors, any other thoughts, comments? Counselor McGivern?
Mr. President, I'd just like to speak in favor of passing the authorization this evening. I think it's a note to note that both the schools and the city is going in the right direction, as we've had many hours of discussion on these issues in front of us. This process is not unusual. It's the process that's been used many times before, as Councilor LeBron Martinez pointed out, the high school more recently. And it puts us in a position to make a more educated decision on what is the next step for the public schools, facilities, and for the way that they eventually do their curriculum, because it depends on the type of facilities that they build. So I think even though it sounds like we're spending a lot of money up front, it's the only way to do it to get that reimbursement eventually, and I support it wholeheartedly.
Okay, great. Anybody else? Counselor Tomlin?
Yeah, I'm very much in support of this authorization also. I met with a meeting with Councilor Roman down in Springdale area last week, and it was very informative, and somebody from the school department explained the process in the schools and how we're moving towards that, and also spoke with Dr. Stryker about this, what they wanted to do with the schools, and it's very important that we get this and get this authorization going and get the funding from the state.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. All in favor of passing the first reading?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to pass
So
the
moved.
second reading?
Okay,
Second.
motion's been made and seconded to pass the second reading. I just want to be clear, so we have this bond authorization, which is going to count for, vote to appropriate funding, submit a statement of interest. I just want to make sure we have all the documentation, Brenna, that we need here at this point.
We don't have it in there. I have it all in email too.
Okay. Where's the statement of interest piece? Is there something specifically we need to, here it is, right here. Are we going to use that one? Okay. Here's the funding. Here, why don't you take a look at that real quick? I just want to make sure we get that other piece right. That's the feasibility study, so that's all set. All right. Okay. Oh, it has been changed to say Holyoke now. They just didn't take they have another generic. They wrote in here Holyoke, so they updated it. Okay. Definitely. All right. I'm going to just briefly read the statement of interest as well, just so we make sure we read that into the record, because I know this is time sensitive. This is what you're voting on, counselors. I already read to you the language on the authorization for funding. Now here's the statement of interest. Resolved, having convened in an open meeting of the Holyoke City Council on March 21st, 2017, prior to the closing date, the City Council of Holyoke, in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinances, has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit to the Massachusetts School Building Authority the statement of interest form dated March 2nd, 2017, for the H.B. Lawrence School located at 156 Cabot Street, which describes and explains the following deficiencies and priority categories for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future, Priority 7, replacement of or addition to obsolete buildings in order to provide for a full range of programs consistent with the state and approved local requirements. And hereby further specifying acknowledges that by submitting this statement of interest form, the Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance or the approval of an application, the awarding of a grant, or any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the city, town, regional school district to filing an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Building Authority. Okay, so just so we're clear, the vote at this time, if assuming there's no further discussion, is on approval of that statement of interest language and on approving of the $800,000 authorization as stated earlier, as I read to you, to appropriate funding for the feasibility study. By your vote, you will be approving both items. This is what the committee is recommending for adoption. The vote at this time will be, as recorded by the clerk, will be on acceptance of the committee report and on acceptance of both of those two items, the statement of interest and on the $800,000 authorization for the feasibility study. Is there any further questions, comments, thoughts? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll. A yes vote is to adopt both of those items. A no vote is to deny both items.
Valentine?
Yes.
Bresnahan?
Yes.
Graney?
Yes.
Jordan? Leahy?
Yes.
LeBron Martinez?
Yes.
Lisi?
Yes.
Lopez?
Yes.
McGee? Yes. McGivern?
Yes.
Roman?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tallman?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
By your vote, you have approved both authorizations for the school committee, and I'm sure they'll spend all $800,000 very wisely. So we wish them well as they build us some new buildings. Good luck. And, Counselors, we have an item marked item number 2 on our agenda that's currently laid on the table. This is the Committee on Development and Government Relations, to whom was referred an order for CDBG block grants. There's a recommendation that be adopted, but I don't believe the final numbers have come in yet still. So I believe that should be remaining tabled. And the chairman gives his regrets. He's away out of town on a family event. He is not to be with us this evening. So he did not ask for any movement on this at this meeting, so I believe this will be at our next meeting. Okay. All right. So that takes care of item number 2. That now moves us on to public comment. We have had 5 concerned citizens who have, from Holyoke and beyond, who have asked to speak before the city council, one of whom has already left the room, so we're now down to 4. And does the city council give authorization for a non-Holyoke resident to address the city council?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of suspending the rules for this purpose?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. All right, so Chicopee is now under the list of allowed speakers. And so, but first up,
We're gonna put a timeline on this, or what?
we should be fine, because we only have 1, 2, 3, 4 people, so we'll be okay. But yes, generally 2 minutes. Juan Sanchez, who needs no introduction, of 10 Cade House Road. Juan, welcome.
Thank you, councilors. Good evening, Juan.
Just make sure your mic's on.
Thank you, councilors. Good evening, Juan Sanchez of 10 Gay House Road. I'm here to speak regarding 2 items on the agenda today. The first item I want to speak on is item 4, the mayor's veto of the order passed by the city council 11-2 to approve Councilor Roman's CPA order. The reason I'm against the mayor's veto is that in his veto, he insinuates that the city council can somehow not approve a proper representation of the residents of the city of Holyoke, which to me is ridiculous. If anything, I believe that the mayor has actually done a poor job of creating positions that are representative of the community on boards, although he'll state that since he's become mayor, the increase of minority residents on these boards has increased. There is still no resident from Ward 1 or Ward 2 who serves on any board or committee in the city of Holyoke. And when I think about the Community Preservation Act and where historic preservation and open space and affordable housing needs to happen, it's the lower wards. And because I've had no indication that the mayor is actually placing anybody from these lower wards on these committees. I believe that the city councilors, especially those at large and our ward councilors, would do a way better job because we actually vote for you guys to represent the residents at large. And I have more confidence and faith in our city council to appoint people who are more, diverse and intellectual and know what they're doing than, the mayor and understanding that Yes for Holyoke is against, Councilor Roman's order. That's perfectly fine. As a concerned resident of Ward 1, I completely stand with Councilor Roman's order. I commend the city council on approving the said order. And once again, I'm against the mayor's veto on the order. The second item I want to bring up is item 7 regarding GTI Massachusetts. I'm not sure what the discussion is regarding this in business today. I do know that on the 28th we have an ordinance committee meeting regarding this industry. My personal concern is I don't believe there has been enough public outreach or enough time for the residents of that ward to be able to ask questions and get answers as to what kind of business is coming into their ward. There was one meeting and it was well attended, and I commend Councilor LeBron on putting that meeting together, but I do believe that more meetings should be available to the public for them to ask questions and more residents to be able to get engaged in this process before getting any vote on whether or not this business should be allowed to come into the city of Holyoke.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Juan. We appreciate that. Next up is Price Armstrong, who we've heard from a few times recently. Price, welcome back. Price hails from 57 Park Slope.
Yes. Thank you. Price Armstrong from 57 Park Slope. I just wanted to, all of you should have a postcard except for Councilor Graney. I ran out of postcards, so I'll be getting you one. That's what you get for sitting at the end of the line. You got to talk to whoever.
No respect. A day late and $1 short.
Oh, in my life.
Whoever. I'm Armstrong, so I was always at the beginning with an A last name. But so I serve on the Holyoke Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. Within that capacity, I've been serving on the steering committee for the River Roll and Stroll, which is a joint event being undertaken by the town of South Hadley and the city of Holyoke. It's taking place on May 7th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. We're closing off the 116 bridge between the two communities. It's going to be pedestrians, bicyclists, food trucks, band, street buskers, face painting. It's just going to be a great time. Sweeping vistas of the river, the dam, the mountain. And so I just wanted to give you all, first off, a formal invitation to please come join us. Spread it in your networks. And I'll get you guys some more cards if you want them. So I also just want to note that this is a literally unprecedented event in the Pioneer Valley. MassDOT has never agreed to shut down a bridge before for any amount of time other than if it's structurally deficient and about to collapse, which thankfully this one is not. So I think it's going to be really special, really proud to be working on this, and I appreciate the support. Councilor Sullivan has been helping me out, contacting businesses down in that area to give them the heads up, and so appreciate any support that you guys can lend as well. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Price. We really appreciate that.
We're just glad we didn't tell them about the bungee cord jumping.
I will not be partaking in that. Next up is Attorney Victor Raynow, who also needs no introduction, but he hails from 103 Bridle Path Road, Chickadee.
Mr. President, at this time, I don't know why, but I feel obligated to let everybody know that I am a parishioner of St. Jerome's.
Duly noted.
Thank you.
I'd like to let everybody know I am a parishioner of Blessed Sacrament.
How much do you contribute weekly?
A lot more than you, Mr. President.
We've got that all cleared up.
Mr. President,
Yes, Councilor McGivern.
I'm a parishioner, very proud to be a parishioner of Our Lady of Guadalupe, the fastest growing Catholic church in the city.
Outstanding.
Mr. President,
Councilor Sullivan.
a proud member of Our Lady of the Cross Church in Holyoke.
I'm a ditto on that one. I love that Our Lady of the Cross.
Mr. President, I'm a Scottish Presbyterian, so.
I thought he was a lumberjack.
Yes, and a frugal one. Assessor Anab.
Yes, thank you for welcoming me to the council meeting. In fact, I know each and every one of you. I taught school with Howie Graney. That puts me back a couple of years. I'd like to thank the council for allowing me to speak briefly on the, I'm here on the motions filed by Mr. Sullivan. We've already had a hearing on these three basically before the Public Safety Committee. All the Catholics who stood up and those who are atheists, those who are members of other churches, I would not be here in Holyoke asking that any church of any of yours be knocked down. And at some point, Holyoke will probably only have 2 churches. But for now, the motions are to make sure the property owner at Matador Rosa does what he can to shore up the building. I came into your lovely city because I was born in Holyoke. I taught school at Lawrence Junior High School, and I still care about Holyoke. I come into the city quite a bit, even though when the mall got built, we all moved outward. But as we talked about the church itself, I came in for the celebration of the Beer Fest. In fact, I didn't see too many of you there, but it was a nice event starting from.
Don't drink, I was at church.
Well, you could always have a soda. So anyway, from Thursday, it wasn't a great crowd on Thursday, but on Friday, the neighborhood was mobbed, okay? It was absolutely mobbed next to the church. And they were parked in front of the church. They were parked in the parking lot. Everybody had a great time. The news media were all there. And then the big one, of course, was on Saturday. And I was at that one too, and a couple of my people were here, and we took pictures. The church is supposedly in terrible condition. I'm holding up a picture here of the corner of Lyman and Maple Street. There were thousands of people there. The starting line for the run happens to be right in front of Pulaski Heights, right on Maple Street. If the church were in such bad condition, according to its owner, what were all the people doing here? Not one sign. In fact, they charged $20 to park in the parking lot, and they allowed the runners to use the social center. So publicly, you know, there's one story. Privately, there's another story. But the fact is, the council has a right to enforce the ordinance, the blight ordinance. Already 3 times, not known to the public, we've already enforced the blight ordinance. The blight ordinance was enforced when the front door was vandalized twice, and also a stained glass window in the front of the church was vandalized. And right now, the diocese still hasn't registered, according to my last contact with the health department, it hasn't registered its vacant building under the blight ordinance. So I'd like the council to really consider doing the best they can. Nobody ever thought they'd be destroying Matador Rosa, but they're trying to do it now. So please adopt the orders in whatever form Councilor Sullivan is interested in adopting. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to actually respond to Victor Adop's sophomore comments about the beer drinking events this past weekend. This past weekend, we had in the city of Holyoke one of the largest road races in New England, one of the largest parades in New England, which, as the Donahue Institute wrote, I think in 2011, it brings over $20 million into the Pioneer Valley, not West Mass, but the Pioneer Valley. So the fact that somebody's trying to use the common denominator of a beer drinking event, that's just simply wrong. It's obviously coming from somebody that's outside of Holyoke, and I take umbrage to that. What we have done is create one of the best road races and one of the best parades that have so many different ethnic groups. It doesn't matter what ethnic group you're a part of, it's one. It's the largest homecoming in New England, and you call it for what it's worth. St. Patrick's Road Race and St. Patrick's Parade. Thank you.
Next up is Stephen Moore. Mr. Moore with us? Oh, I'm sorry, Stephanie. Your handwriting is not.
Yeah.
Stephanie, can we have a residential address for you?
Yeah, sure. You may need to amend the rules here. I am not from Holyoke. I'm from Northampton, 56 Crosspath Road, but I work at Jones Ferry River Access Center, which is what brings me here.
Give me your address again.
56 Crosspath Road, Northampton.
Crosscut Road.
Make a motion to allow her to speak. Second.
We already allowed our non-resident concerned citizens to speak, so we're all set there.
All right,
Go
great.
ahead, Stephanie.
Great, so I'm here to address, I guess it's item number 32 that Councilor Roman brought up at my request. So I operate Holyoke Road, or I work for Holyoke Rose, and we operate the boathouse at Jones Ferry River Access Center, and I'm requesting that we change the address on the books to match what physically works for people. So the Anchor Room address, the Anchor Room when it was there instead of the boathouse, was 8 Oscar Street. When the city approved building the boathouse, they closed Oscar Street. So now to get to the boathouse, you don't take Oscar Street, you take Jones Ferry Road. We want to put up a mailbox, use the post office service, and we'd like that address to reflect the way people would get there, so people aren't driving down Oscar Street and bothering the neighbors to get to the boathouse. So I'm requesting that we change the address to whatever the city books look at it and figure it out, but from my looking at it, it would be 25 Jones Ferry Road. The neighbor on the corner is 23 Jones Ferry Road.
Makes sense.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you, Stephanie.
President?
Yes, Counselor Bacon.
Just a point of information to the earlier speaker, Mr. Sanchez, that the meeting on March 28th at 6:30 of the Ordinance Committee is a public hearing for GTI, so that is open to the public for any questions or comments they may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Lisi, did you have something?
Just related to this last point, I don't know if we need to send it to a committee so much as we need to just get it into the assessor's office so that they could create a card for the new address.
If it's city property and they're changing the address, I would like something to be drafted in, I think, some sort of legal form.
Mr. President?
Because it's probably going to require a recording of, on the registry of deeds, I would say, and that I would almost say would require some sort of council approval. I believe council approval, the last time I remember something like this was when we changed 220 Appleton Street to 138 Appleton Street in honor of Officer DiNapoli for the Hoyoke Police Department, when we changed the address. So maybe something of that genre. Councilor Roman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to Councilor Lisi. I went on the assessor's map, so it physically says Oscar Street, and it looks like it's a small stretching of the street, so that's why I filed it this way, is physically changing it over to that new street, because it literally goes Jones Ferry Road, and then it says Oscar Street on the assessor's map, so it's physically changing a street name.
Yeah, and you're going to have to look at how is it deeded, because when we acquired that, and I was here for that vote among some of the more tenured people around here, we purchased that for $500 and something thousand on a grant that we got, and whatever it says in the land recording, I think we're going to have to do some sort of either deed correction or a deed modification. Right. Okay. Okay. What committee do you recommend from our ordinance? Okay. So we'll send it to ordinance tonight, Stephanie, but we'll begin the process, and if it can be done, I don't think anybody would object if it can, that sounds reasonable, if it helps citizens, And if you GPS it, which is what everybody's using on the smartphones, 25 is better, I would assume? Yes, okay, great. All right, so stay tuned for that one. And that now gets us through public comment, and now we're up to communication number 3.
Mr. President, motion to suspend the rules to just take up item number 32 to dispense of it.
Second.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded to take up item number 32 at this time. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so moved. Order reads as follows, introduced by Councilor Roman. The city's street ordinances be amended to change Oscar Street in Holyoke to Jones Ferry Road, extending the current street and changing the address of Sue Ellen Panage Boathouse at Jones Ferry River Access Center to 25 Jones Ferry Road.
Motion to send to ordinance with a copy to the planning board and the DPW.
Second. Yes. Yeah, and we're also that's definitely going to be by ordinance now. That's actually going to need an ordinance change too, because you're changing the street. Yeah. We, in the ordinances, outline all the distances on all the roads in the city. So that's an ordinance change. Councilor McGivern.
I believe the DPW holds the public hearing, but we should also notify all property owners on Oscar Street. There may be some addresses there, even though there's no buildings or no structures.
Yep.
There still could be addresses.
Absolutely. There's actually 2 things going on there. You're discontinuing potentially a section of the street, which requires a public safety committee generally has handled those. I suppose we could do it over an ordinance as well, but there is a public, DPW has to have a hearing, and then ordinance is going to need to have a meeting on changing the actual streets. Councilor Lisi.
So I'm just curious, the way that I understood the situation is that there was a request to change the address of the boathouse as opposed to changing the name of the street altogether. And so it just from what I'm hearing, and of course we'll get into this in more detail in committee, it seems like it may not need to be as complicated a process if it's just the address change. If there is a street change, yes, there'll be a more complicated process, but.
I agree, if that's the case. Yeah, I agree. Counselor McGivern.
Just to point out that probably the law department could help us, but the address is dictated, I believe, by frontage, and the frontage of the property is Oscar Street, not Jones Ferry, so that makes it complicated. Because the Jones Ferry part is actually the parking lot for the marina itself.
Yep.
Mr. President,
Counselor Graney.
just a request. We've been here for an hour. We have 32 items on the agenda. I respectfully request that we move this agenda forward, please. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I believe the motion on the floor was to send 32 to ordinance with a copy to planning and a copy to the DPW. All in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So moved. Communication number 3. A letter from the mayor. Reappointing Al Lyman of 19 Thomas Avenue to serve as a member of the Council on Disabilities for the City of Holyoke. Mr. Lyman will serve a 3-year term. Said term will expire on March 2020.
Make a motion to receive and adopt and reappoint.
Confirm the appointment.
Yep. Motions have made and seconded to suspend the rules and to adopt the appointment this evening. Any discussion? I'll just briefly say Al's been on this committee for a long, long time, very dedicated person, especially to people with disabilities in the city, so very fine appointment. Any other thoughts? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Communication number 4 from the mayor. It's a letter stating that he has vetoed our ordinance change in our new adopted ordinance relative to getting the Community Preservation Committee going. And he goes on, as we've all read in our packets, he gives about 4 paragraphs as to why he thinks it shouldn't be adopted.
Mr. President, motion to override the veto?
Motion's been made and seconded to override the mayor's veto, that is to pass the law notwithstanding the mayor's objections. Any discussion? Councilor Roman.
Mr. President, yes, just briefly, I just thank my colleagues who voted previously 11-2 to approve this order. I just think it's time to move forward and just get this committee going. So I would really advocate and really lobby my colleagues to please just approve this override of this veto. Let's get the CPC committee going, and let's move forward with this. Thank you, Mr. President.
Welcome. Councilor Lisi.
Thanks. I want to make 2 really brief points. The first is that I did vote for this last time around. I think that the committee the way we created it is in a good working form. However, I am getting a lot of calls from constituents saying that the city council member on the committee is a deal breaker for them, and so I'm going to be overriding the veto at this. Sustaining the veto at this time. And then it just occurred to me that when Juan Sanchez was at the mic, in terms of having more direct representation for the lower wards, I think the exact argument that the CPC advocates that are not in favor of the city council member, their argument is that they want more citizen representation, and they're hoping to pull more citizens from the lower wards and have that sort of direct representation as opposed to the indirect representation that the city councilor would make. I'm personally, conflicted, but I'm taking direction from the constituents that have been contacting me on this one, so that's where I'll be voting tonight.
Gee, I should have called you. Councilor Vacan.
I'll speak in support of overriding the veto, and I've received no calls on this matter. Thank you.
Any other thoughts, comments, questions? All right, very good. Clerk will call the roll. A yes vote is to override the mayor's veto and adopt the law. A no vote is to sustain the mayor's veto and not adopt the law.
Valentine?
No.
Bresnahan?
Yes.
Greenie?
Yes.
Jordan?
Yes.
Leahy?
No.
LeBron Martinez?
No.
Lisi? Lopez?
Yes.
McGee? No. McGivern?
Yes.
Roman?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tolman?
No.
Bacon?
Yes.
8-6.
8 yeas, 6 nays.
Okay.
Mr. President, motion to reconsider?
Motion has been, is there a second? Second. Motion's been made and seconded to reconsider our action on the item and presumably to lay it on the table?
Yes, Mr. President.
Okay. Motion is to reconsider our action on item number 4. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
No.
Ayes carry. All,
Show
okay,
of
show of hands. Raise your hand if you want to reconsider our action. Eight, motion carries. Before you make the motion to table, I would just say, just be aware, I don't know, there's obviously been a certain change of heart that's been undisclosed to date on this issue by a number of counselors apparently. I would just like to, maybe the chairman can reiterate how many meetings, how many hours, the number of people who did or did not show up included in this room on this, and moreover, the point that this ordinance needs adoption before we can do anything, or maybe we just don't have a committee, and then they don't do anything. Well, that's also an option. So we can also do that.
Mr. President?
Yes, Councilor Roman.
Yeah, so under my motion to reconsider, I'd just like to implore my colleagues who are here. At last reading, I applaud Councilor McGivern, who made valid recommendations to change the law, and that would have been the appropriate point. And with regards to my colleague's statement about caring for the lower wards, I had an office hours. I've talked to residents in Ward 2, and the CPC committee for the Yes on Holyoke, and again, I respect them and thank them for their work. If they were that concerned, they would have gone out and talked to the residents of the lower wards. 0 signatures from Ward 1, 1 signature from Ward 2. And I've talked to my constituents heavily about this. They don't have an issue with that. I've actually have constituents who said, Nelson, I'm ready to serve. I'm interested. Can I submit? I've gotten 2 emails from constituents from my ward saying, I want to serve on the committee. Let's move on it. What I would implore my colleagues to do, I would like to see concrete, tangible action. We had 4 committee meetings. We had a whole 2-hour hearing here in which the only recommendation for changes, and we heard great suggestions from the Yes for CPA committee. At any point around representation, around any of these issues that have been brought before us by the mayor, those could have been amended at our last meeting. And we spent the time doing that. So to my colleagues who have had their change of heart, and yes, they've probably been lobbied by the same individuals who've been consistent on this issue, but I can tell you as a man from Ward 2, that level of intellectual disrespect from no signatures from 1, no signatures from 2. I didn't see any of the Yes for CPA folks at my office hours trying to talk to constituents or residents. I think it's time we get this passed. And if we're truly trying to say that the end goal is about preservation around open spaces and around low to moderate income housing, rehab, or fixing, the only counselor, and I will applaud him, who said, hey, let's make an amendment, and it was around the removing provision, was Councilor McGivern, and I applaud him. So to my colleagues tonight, I think it's sad that we can't move this forward. I would really implore under my motion to reconsider, you pass this, because I can tell you that when I'm talking to the lower ward residents or the lower ward businesses like Capri or Seatown or all the other organizations, they say, we haven't even heard from them. We haven't seen anything. We haven't heard from this discussion. We've heard those points and arguments, and instead of, again, trying to make those suggestions at last meeting, we had individuals who didn't say anything, or this evening are voting against it, but at last meeting had every opportunity to make those suggestions, or the 4 ordinance committees we had to fix it. So I'm just a little bit saddened that we can't move past this, and I get the pressure that certain individuals might be hearing from certain individuals, but I can tell you in 1 and 2, they're ready to start moving on this.
Councilor Leahy had his hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I haven't heard from anybody on either side, to be honest with you. I've been thinking since day one that we need less government on this board. That's why I filed, and you filed the same time. I know you had forgotten about this at our last meeting, but I filed language to have no city councilor on this. Why not have people that want to be active in the community to step up and be on this board? A city councilor wouldn't do any harm. In fact, quite frankly, I think it'd be, not a bad thing. However, why not have people that want to be active in our city and making important decisions? And quite frankly, this is a very important board, so making extremely important decisions. It's kind of interesting, and I don't care at all. I've been around here long enough, but it seems I've been completely forgotten in my order, which is kind of comical because other people are now like becoming heroes. But I sit back and I laugh, and what I do is just say, you know what, I filed the original order with the original language, so no counselor would be on this. I heard it was all intermingled and the best of both worlds, and apparently, in my opinion, it's not. So that's why I'm going along with Mayor Morris's veto. Thank you.
Councilor Graney.
Mr. President, the committee worked hours and hours and hours, discussion from the public on this issue. Now, my question to you is, if we move to table this, can we put it on the table and just let it sit there?
Sure.
I'd like to move to table it.
And we can keep taking votes on the override, I guess, an innumerable number of times theoretically. But there you go, Counselor McGivern.
Tabling it, not doing anything with the veto kills the committee. We just killed the committee. There's no committee.
Right.
Therefore, state law says certain department heads have to weigh in on the CPA money. They're going to weigh into who? The city council.
Right.
Citizens will not be involved at all if we don't have a committee. You know, we looked for some compromise language 2 weeks ago. We thought we found it. Compromise language is what it's about. We have used the process of a city councilor with building, advisory boards, with the school department, with every other department within the city, with every other major project where money is involved. We've put city councilors on those committees, and it's worked well.
Absolutely.
John Brunel and the building committee with the schools, our joint committee with the current situation with the schools and the proposals, the block grant monies with Councilor Sullivan on the Citizens Advisory Committee. That's the process that we use. We have the final vote. Having a city councilor with the eyes and ears to tell us what these good people are talking about at their meetings is what's going to help this process work better. It's not going to be an easy one, because I've heard from people from all over the city. The people that were against the CPA are not happy about not having a city council present. That's not what's determining my decision-making here. But there are people out there who are watching this and are hoping that we keep the process to a point where the big picture is what we want to do, is get good projects through, projects that we can all agree upon. If we don't have a committee, how are we going to do that? This is a veto. This isn't the ordinance in front of us. The mayor killed the ordinance to create the committee. Now there's no committee if we don't overturn the veto.
Yeah. Councilor Sullivan.
Thank you. I just want to let everybody here know, now this is 2 years I've served on the CDBG. And at the...
Kevin.
Yeah, yep. Councilor Sullivan.
Thank you. At the, throughout the whole experience, the relationship with the citizens on these committee, was fantastic. There was never any real friction. Everybody's voice and opinions were accepted, and even ones that were not in favor, I represented fairly to the Development and Government Relations Board. And I think any other member of this group sitting here tonight of city councilors would have acted in the same way. I think it's a slap in the face to every single one of you to think that you shouldn't be sitting on this committee. You're also citizens of this town. There's a half a dozen boards, maybe more in this town, and there's already not enough people volunteering. We just went through a thing, we have 3 people volunteer. We have 3 people to choose from. It's not like we've got a dozen people out there volunteering for every slot. So it's not like we're denying people a chance to sit and participate on these boards. That's it.
Yeah, Councilor Bresnahan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The idea of having a city councilor, I think, is a good idea on the board. I mean, we are certainly probably better in tune to the ongoings of budget problems and what's the inner workings of the city than most. I find it humorous that people continue to say, let's not make this political. We can't have a city councilor on this, because Lord knows that the mayor appoints every single person on every single board and can take them off that board at his whim. I mean, so we've got all these. It was funny because that night that this discussion came up, we were reaffirming a board member that the mayor appointed. So to think that the person that's on the historical commission, well, guess what? Conservation Commission, mayor appoints all of them. Planning Board, mayor appoints all of them. Historical Commission, mayor appoints all of them. Housing Authority appoints 3 out of 5. Board of Commissioners, he appoints all of them. So to make it think like this is a political, can't have a city council on it because we're all tainted politicians, but let the mayor appoint every single person to every single board that is making these decisions is inappropriate. And I continue to hear comments about the mayor, who he's appointing. Again, he's not appointing folks from the lower wards. We know that. He's taking them folks off. He's taking Latinos off the Holyoke Housing Authority Board, as we all know, and appointing non-Latino members of that board. So it's a political agenda. It's a good idea to have a city councilor on there, because we know we are much more in tune to how the city works and our concerns of budgets and monies. So again, this isn't going to destroy the CPC. What's going to happen tonight, it's going to be tabled, and it's going to fall apart. Nelson Roman in the ordinance put on a great round of meetings that everyone could have came down to. It was voted 11-2 last time. So to think that this isn't a political agenda when it was voted 11-2, and now we just got, now 6 people voted against it. I mean, that's political.
Well, yeah, Councilor Valentin.
Thank you. Just to clarify, the final vote was 11-2, and I don't have the minutes in front of me, but maybe the clerk can help me with this. Yes, the final vote was 11-2. Councilor Leahy and I were the only no votes. However, there were a number of amendments that were attempted here on the floor. One from Councilor McGivern regarding changing from a majority to a 2/3 or something along those lines, and that passed. There was also an attempt to, if I remember correctly, to amend the ordinance to remove the city councilor, and I believe that was a motion made by Councilor Lisi that I had seconded, and I think that had 6 votes, if I remember correctly. So again, we've heard that the breaking point here for some of us, and I'll include myself, is the whole piece about including a counselor in the makeup of the committee. And so I just, I want to make sure that we're looking at the different narratives here, because we want to make sure that there's a accurate portrayal of, yes, the final vote was 11-2, but that breaking point for a lot of us is that whole piece about the counselor being a part of the makeup of the committee. And we tried to do the amendment for that evening 2 weeks ago, and we only had 6. So I just wanted to make that point really clear.
Mm-hmm. Councilor Lopez.
Mr. President, I just want to find out, I mean, if we're not going anywhere, I would like to file a late file order just to abolish the whole thing and move forward and give a tax break to the citizens.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens, but,
'Cause I mean,
yeah.
we're not going to continue spending time every city council meeting when
Yeah.
we're not going to be able to move this
Well,
forward.
and there's also this philosophy of, if there's one thing in a 5-page law that I don't like, I just scrap the whole thing. There's also that. Sometimes, you take a vote, you lose a vote, you move forward, right? But apparently now, in a matter of 2 weeks, we've gone from people, obviously, we got to, while that's true, there was 6 at the end, 11, and there were 2 people absent that day. I believe it was you 2 gentlemen. Otherwise, the vote probably would have been 13-2, or would have been.
They were shopping at JCPenney's that night.
That's right. Then, there was a sense of consensus, but I love it that, and I've been around a while, you get 6 people from one area that get on the phone and talk to people, and they think they speak for the other 40,000 residents of the city. And let's be known, if we want to talk about who gets on with who, there's 44% of the city didn't want this at all. No counselors, no anybody. Didn't even want it, period. So, to think that this is somehow, this is extreme, that there's a city councilor on here, is almost to the point of laughable.
Well, I'm ready to get rid of it.
Yeah. Councilor LeBron Martinez.
It's called democracy.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And last time I checked, democracy puts us in this room.
And we're not
Councilor
setting,
LeBron
we're not setting
Martinez.
precedent here either.
We're on every other committee, on a lot of committees.
For the
And it's
CPC?
one of 9. It's one of 9. Councilor LeBron Martinez.
Okay, so I know that this has been a difficult position for many of us, but I just want to remind ourselves that we have the last appointing vote when it comes down to appointing whoever comes on board. So, I mean, people are saying, let's table it, let's demolish it, whatever. I mean, the people voted on this, on a referendum question, so we got to give them what they voted on, so.
Well, yes, and the law says that the city council sets up the committee, and the council went about spending months to put this together. And in the matter of 2 weeks, apparently consensus has fallen apart. So maybe rational heads, now that we've reconsidered this, perhaps people will take a second look at it. Councilor Roman.
Yes, to my colleagues again, and I thank you, and I'd like to clarify a few points. First, to my colleague, Councilor Leahy, yes, we both filed the orders on the committee makeup, but what I was referring to being the first filer, the Yes for CPA group reached out to me to ask me to file the order to get it on the ballot when we had the commission, the discussion. The other counselor, when I submitted my order on the percentage, Todd McGee was the second one to come with the next two differences in percentages. So that's what I was referring to. And that's what I'm saying about when I get upset around this whole ordeal around this Yes for CPA committee, when they needed me to put it, to get it before this body to try to get it on the ballot, when they needed me to go door knocking in Ward 2 and talk to my constituents and business owners to support it, they were right there with me and behind me. But now, because I have said from the beginning, and I've never wavered, that I believe a city council will be an asset, and that last 2 weeks' meetings, we had compromises. And even in ordinance, when we talk about compromise in the language, I removed the council person as the chair. In the language that we drafted, there is a provision that says this CPC, the community board, sends the recommendation to the mayor first for input. We had that discussion in ordinance. So the mayor gets to look at the recommendation and say what he thinks about it. That was compromise. And 2 weeks ago, yes, we had that first vote about a city councilor being on the committee or not. I completely agree with that. I also provided, because that's the point of public hearings, either provide new information or something different. What were the statistics that I provided to my colleagues? And hopefully that'll cool our heads. We will be in line with 30 other communities who have the CPC that have 3 at-large community positions. We will be ahead of 40 other communities that only have 2 at-large positions. We will be ahead of 14 that have 1 and 9 that don't even have at-large positions. So that was the facts. Those were the things that we provided to this body. I think, again, we had those conversations and discussions. It's time to move on. And to my colleague, Councilwoman LeBron Martinez's point, I agree. We need to give the voters what they voted on and move past this. And I can think of no better champion that I would hope, as the chairwoman of the HEDIC committee, that we can say that a city councilor can serve on a board or commission and still do a good job representing overall the city of Holyoke. I would like for those who did vote on sustaining the override to please reconsider. Let's vote to get this passed. Let's vote to override this veto tonight, and let's move it on. And to my colleague, Councilor Lopez, with all due respect, the only way to override it is put it back on the ballot and have the voters remove it. So I just think that tonight we should go forward. And I've always said from the beginning, I'm a counselor that if something doesn't work, I'll be the first one to say, let's fix it. Let's try it with a city councilor on there. If it truly doesn't work, we can vote to change that as a community. But let's look at the facts like I gave. The city of Quincy has 2 city councilors on the CPC committee. Not 1, 2. Our neighbors in East Hampton has had a city councilor on their committee since 2003. No issues. No, the community outcrying saying, let's remove the city council, they're evil. I think that it's time. I hope and pray that we can get this passed and just move forward. Thank you.
Councilor Graney.
Mr. President, the city council, I believe, is the body that allocates the finances for the city of Holyoke, for spending. The people in the city depend upon the city council to be the watchdogs of their money. The Community Preservation Act funding is taxpayer money. There is no reason that a city councilor should not sit on that board, because the city councilor is the one who oversees the spending of the city and approves such spending, and it is absurd not to have a city councilor on the Community Preservation Act committee.
So, does anybody think they're going to perhaps have second thoughts this evening? If not, then we should probably just go to table, because I'm not going to waste us our time.
Let's move on.
Yes, no, maybe?
Was there a vote already to reconsider? I'm sorry.
Yeah, we already reconsidered. That's why we're even talking right at this point. So now it's a motion either to table or to override again. But if there's not going to be 10 votes, and I know Councilor Bartley, I'm sure, feels bad because he didn't think he was going to even be needed tonight. He's away on a family. He's absolutely, I know, for overriding. He would feel more than comfortable with me saying that. But if that's not going to be the case, and we need more thoughts and discussion, we can just table it.
Mr. President, just to remind me a procedural question.
Sure.
Is there a time limit on the mayor's veto that we have to act on it?
No, not that I'm aware of.
There's no such thing as a pocket veto in this case?
Pocket veto would be by him, theoretically, yeah. But we actually don't have pocket vetoes here because in our charter, it says if he takes no action within 10 days, it automatically becomes law. That usually only works at the congressional level when the Congress is out of session. But we're always in session. Counselor Bacon?
Thank you. I'm just hopeful
Yeah.
now that the rest of my colleagues understand that if we don't pass this tonight and we end up tabling it, we are effectively not having any committee.
No committee.
That perhaps they would reconsider so that we can pass it, although it may be imperfect. We can always come back and amend it. We have amended many things over the history of the council. But I would say that there has been good, fair, open, prolonged process in creating this ordinance. So I would sincerely ask my colleagues to reconsider. If it does become problematic, we can certainly revisit it. At this point, I think we're holding up the will of the majority that voted for the CPA. Thank you.
Okay. Motion to override the veto again, Mr. President?
Second.
I don't know. If
Motion to
there's-
table.
Yeah.
Second.
Debatable.
Motion's been made and seconded to table. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
So moved. Try this again in 2 weeks. After we all have the time to think about it some more. Moving right along, item number 5. From our clerk. She
Make a
gives
motion to
us
receive and accept.
the city clerk's minutes of March 7th, 2017.
Second.
Motion is to receive and adopt them. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Item number 6 is a report from Bellamy Schmidt, our acting city auditor. It's the monthly budget reports for the general fund and sewer fund as of January 31st, 2017.
Receive, adopt, City Council
Finance.
Finance.
Motion to receive, refer to finance. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Item number 8, strike that. Number 7, from the Office of Planning and Development, GTI, Massachusetts, NP Corp., 28 Appleton Street. Something from Jeff Burkott in the most smallest possible print, apparently, to get it on one page.
Receive and refer to ordinance.
Should have an ordinance on font size. This is like 2-point font. So motion is to receive and refer to ordinance.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. 8 we already took care of.
Make a motion, we take 9, 10, 11, and
12.
12 as a package. We have
Second.
Okay.
received
Motion
all.
to take items 9 through 12 as a package. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so moved. Item number 9 is from HEDIC. It's our minutes of September 27th and January 9th. Item number 10 is from the HRA. It's the minutes of October 19th and November 16th. Item number 11 from the DPW Sewer Commission and Stormwater Authority minutes of January 23rd. And item number 12 from the Holyoke Board of Health minutes of January 5th. Is there a motion on those to receive?
Motion to receive.
Motion
Second.
has been made and seconded to receive. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Petitions. Petition item number 13 from Frank Farini. He's seeking a new secondhand license to be located at 375 Whitney Avenue.
Receive for the Committee on Finance.
Motion's been made and seconded to receive and refer to finance. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Item number 14, from Mimi May. She's seeking a renewal of her secondhand license located at 324 Appleton Street.
Can we take up 14 with 16 and 17, the renewals as well?
Second.
Sure. Okay, motion's been made and seconded to suspend the rules to take 14, 16, and 17 as a package. All in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. So let's see here, item number 14, Ms. May. She's the proprietor of Easy Exchange located at 324 Appleton Street. And the city says that she is current on all her municipal charges and taxes. Item number 16 is a junk dealer's license for William Sullivan Corporation, and that's at 1 Jed Days Landing. says that they're current on everything. Item number 17 is also from Williams Sullivan Corporation, located at 107 Appleton Street. And they are current on everything for theirs. So a motion would be to approve all of those, I assume?
Yes.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve items
Grant the
14,
renewals.
16, and 17 and grant these renewals. Any discussion? Hearing none. Clerk will call the roll. A yes vote is in favor of approving items 14, 16, and 17. A no vote is to deny all three.
Valentine,
Yes.
Bresnahan, Graney,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Leahy,
Yes.
LeBron Martinez,
Yes.
Lisi,
Yes.
Lopez, McGee, McGivern,
Yes.
Roman,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Tolman,
Yes.
Bacon.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
By your vote, you've approved those three petitions. We now have item number 15. It's a petition of Jeanette Vega for a street vendor license for a mobile food truck.
Receive, send to finance.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to receive and refer to finance.
think
It does
that
not provide the location, and I would say that this looks incomplete to me. There's only one page. She lives at 227 West Franklin Street. It says, would like to have a mobile food truck, no location provided. So I would say the application fails for being incomplete. As you know, this is a license request because the person would like to, the reason it would be before us is they're looking for a license to plop it down on city property. Presumably, they're looking to have this mobile, but we don't grant licenses of that nature because you can't say you have permission here and then here on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Usually that would be, you're granted permission to be at this location. Otherwise, it would be the whole city, theoretically.
Is it possible to table and maybe we can follow up with her and find
Yeah,
out the
I would
location?
that's what I would recommend, would be where would she like to have this? I don't know if anybody knows Ms. Vega, but, they could reach out to her. Her phone number's listed here.
But do they have, sorry, go ahead.
Councilman McGivern?
I think the license she might be looking for is from the Board of Health in the state to actually have the truck. And then if there's a specific location, you're correct, that's when she would come before us. We have nothing to do with the license to have a truck.
Exactly. I mean, if she's like one of these ding-dong cart type things, that has nothing to do with this because those are on public ways. Where it would be problematic would be is if she wanted to take some sort of hot dog cart theoretically and put it on a sidewalk. You would need permission from us if you're going to have it there for greater than 30 days. You would need permission of the council. Any other thoughts?
I think that's what she's probably looking. I mean,
Probably.
I wouldn't mind calling her.
Yeah.
We'll get the number. and
Yeah, there's a
find
phone
out.
number
Yeah,
on here.
that's
Okay.
fine. If we can
All right.
table, send it to her.
So motion to table item number 15.
Second.
All,
Okay, thank you.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. President's report.
Excuse me, can I get a,
Oh, I'm sorry, Counselor Sullivan, yes.
just, it's a procedural question, since I'm granted this. Is the mayor allowed to either rescind or reconsider a veto he has sent in?
Yeah, perhaps.
So I'm
I've
just-
never seen that happen, so.
Well,
Yeah, I suppose he could, because he could sign the law. I suppose, perhaps. I'd have to think, once he vetoes it. I'd have to look into it. Change his mind and signs it anyways. Yeah,
I
maybe.
don't know if can we make a motion that he reconsider his action?
No, I wouldn't even waste her. You're only allowed one reconsideration on each item once anyways, so, for each night, you know. He isn't gonna reconsider, because he's getting the same 6 phone calls these other people got, okay?
Right, and,
It's the same people that spoke at the rail. They have a disproportionate level of authority around here, apparently.
well, my question is, where does it die, on our table or his desk?
It'll live and die here. We're either gonna override it or we're not. And if we don't, if we say left it as sustained, we'd have to start all over again. If we override it, then it becomes law. So we'll see. We'll see what happens in 2 weeks. There was a lot of movement in the last 2 weeks. Perhaps there'll be some more movement in the next 2 weeks. Counselor Lisi?
I just wanted to touch in on some of that. So if we override it, then we don't get anything. We have to start the process over. There's no way to amend. There's nothing else to do but to override or not override.
Correct. But but what you could do at that point is you could file an ordinance change to amend the ordinance, like any law.
Sure, once it passes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we can't amend. I think the question that Councilor Sullivan was trying to get at is if there's a way to amend what's before us in
No,
any
I don't
way.
think that's what he's getting at. What he's
not what
getting
I'm
at
getting
is, could the mayor change his mind and withdraw his veto? I honestly don't know. I have never seen that happen. I'd have to give that some thought. I suppose theoretically, he could turn around and say, I'm going to sign it, but I don't know. He's probably already sent it back.
All due respect, Mr. President, the motion to table is not debatable, and we tabled this.
Exactly. Yeah, so we're on personal privilege at this point, but, okay, very good. President's report. The only thing I'll say that's extremely noteworthy is that, looks like we're going to have perhaps soon a attorney for the city council, so that's good. It looks like we're going to, I want to credit Sarah's hard work and looking like we got a pool of some good candidates, and we may have a decision pretty soon on that. And it's not Vic Anap. So, but other than that, but other than that, that's a nice thing. And, again, kudos to the city council for filling the auditor position. So at least as it relates to a lot of our appointments, we're getting there. I think we're going to have a pretty good, solid team, that's here to do the public business. So that was the main thing I wanted to relay for this, particular meeting. Okay, moving right along.
Mr. President, can I make an announcement?
Sure.
I was approached from the Holyoke, Friends of Holyoke Public Library. There's an event coming up on the mini golf event that they do inside the library, and they wanted to know if we want to put an ad. And I said I'll bring it to attention of us if we wanted to do it with the Sunshine Fund supporting their efforts for the library. So just letting you know.
Okay.
Thank
you. I'll give that some thought, and I'll consult the checkbook and let you know.
Thank you.
Yeah. I don't know what they had in mind. Councilor McGivern?
It's a wonderful event, and I would support that. I went last year. I heard Council Leahy's going to golf this year. He does have a handicap of 2, so he
Even
may
in
have
mini
to.
golf?
Yeah. Well, you start on the 3rd floor and you go down, so
Oh,
it's,
okay. Very good. That's encouraging. All
Can
right.
I ask you a question? Are all the members of the council members of the Sunshine Club?
Currently, yes.
Oh, is it the first?
First in a while. First in a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah. No, we got.
doesn't know he's chipping into it.
Mrs. Graney paid, yeah. No, actually, all 15 are in right now, so that's a nice thing. Okay, good. So maybe we can talk
Yeah,
logistics.
they have a deadline for the 23rd, just letting you know, just.
Oh, which is 2 days from now,
Sorry,
okay.
brought it to my
All right.
attention.
Can I have a
Just-
golf cart?
Huh? You get a golf cart? You gotta ask them that. I don't have nothing to do with it.
That'd be a no.
All right, thank you for that. 18A, Ordinance Committee Report. To whom is referred an order that one parking space opposite the driveway for 138 Linden Street be designated no parking to facilitate the entry by rubbish removal service truck. At present, if a car is parked above, below, and across from 138 Linden driveway, the garbage truck cannot get in, and if only 2 of those 3 spaces are occupied, the truck is able to get in. This is impacting the garbage removal process for this building. And it is, the committee has recommended that this be adopted. Councilors Bacon, Jordan, and Lopez.
So motion to pass the first reading?
Motion's been made and seconded to pass the first reading. Under discussion, Councilor Bacon.
It was found to be a reasonable request to facilitate the service process, and the committee approved it, recommends approval.
I believe this was originally introduced by Councilor Valentin for us to do. Yep. Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of passing the first reading?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Motion to pass the second reading?
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded to pass the second reading. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Motion that the passage be ordained.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded that the passage be ordained. There is no further discussion. The clerk will call the roll. A yes vote is in favor of the adopting the ordinance change, and no vote is to deny it.
Bacon?
Yes. I'm last.
Valentine?
Yes.
Bresnahan? Bresnahan?
Oh. On adoption of the 18A, yep.
Graney? Jordan?
Yes.
Leahy?
Yes.
LeBron Martinez?
Yes.
Lisi?
Yes.
Lopez?
Yes.
McGee? McGivern?
Yes.
Roman?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tallman?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
Mr.
By your vote,
President,
you've approved the ordinance change.
motion to suspend rules, take up 18B through E as a
Second.
package.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to take up items 18B through 18E as a package. All in favor of that?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. 18B is a report, these are all reports from the Committee on Ordinance. 18B is, to whom is referred an order that the DPW remove the handicap parking sign in front of 99 Carlton Street as the sign is no longer needed. Recommend that be adopted. 18C is that the handicap parking spot in front of 144 Linden Street be removed. Resident is moved, no longer needed. D, order that the parking spot at 179 Beach Street be removed. Resident has moved and that spot is no longer needed. 18E is that the handicap parking spot in front of 189 Beach Street removed. That resident also has moved and that spot is no longer needed. This is signed off for approval by Councilors Vacan, Jordan, and Lopez of the Ordinance Committee.
A motion to pass the first reading.
Motion's been made. Is there a second? Second. Second. To pass the first reading under discussion, Councilor Vacan.
All of these are as noted. They had been applied for and approved, and we need to go through revising the ordinance in order to remove them properly.
Okay. Any other discussion? Councilor McGivern.
Just a note, Mr. President, on 1918D and 179 Beach Street, that ordinance language still has a handicap placard, therefore it predates Councilor Valentine, I think Councilor Welch, and goes back to some guy who was in Ward 4 a long time ago. So that placard sign has lasted many years.
Wow. And I just caught up to it.
No, it was used for many years.
Oh, was it used?
Yeah,
Okay.
even though the number wasn't supposed to be there.
Aha. Okay, very good.
So, motion to pass the second reading.
Motion's been made and seconded to pass the second reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Motion that the passage be ordained.
Motion's been made and seconded that the passage be ordained. There is no further discussion. The clerk will call the roll. A yes vote is in favor of adoption of all four of those ordinance changes, and no vote is to deny all four.
Valentine?
Yes.
Bresnahan?
Yes.
Graney?
Yes.
Jordan?
Yes.
Leahy?
Yes.
LeBron Martinez?
Yes.
Lisi?
Yes.
Lopez?
Yes.
McGee? McGivern?
Yes.
Roman?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tallman?
Yes.
Bacon?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
By your vote, you've approved those ordinance changes. There were no Finance Committee reports for this particular meeting, so we're now on to Public Safety Committee reports, which brings us to item number 20A. The Committee on Public Safety, to whom was referred an order that Mark DuPont and Russell Sprague of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Springfield and their agent, Barry Engineers, be invited to answer questions of public safety regarding the Mata Della Rosa Church and Rectory. Have considered the same, recommend that the order has been complied with. Councilors Leahy, Graney, Sullivan, and Valentin.
Is
I was-
there a
Do we want to do
desire
these three as a
yeah.
package, perhaps?
Well, there's been a little change, so no.
We do not. Okay, very
not.
good.
Thank you.
All right. So, and I turn it over now for a motion. from
Receive and
Council-
adopt the committee report.
Motion's been made and seconded to
Second.
receive and adopt the committee report that this item has been complied with. Under discussion, Councilor Bresnahan.
Sure. I read into public record the night of the meeting that we did get a correspondence from Mark DuPont, who said he would graciously not accept our invitation to the public safety meeting. I could certainly let the maker of the orders, speak a little bit more about that, but all three orders were filed by Councilor Sullivan. It was his motion to say that this order was complied with, so we went with that.
Councilor Sullivan.
Thank you. The reason I say the order's been complied with is they were invited. That was the order. I take great offense, and I hope the rest of the council does, at the attack on our city officials. Damian Cody would have condemned the church in a heartbeat if he was shown anything that resembled imminent collapse. The problems at the Essex House and the Armory were not in any way caused by a lack of concern or negligence on the part of Mr. Cody. And for them to attempt to draw a parallel between those events in the church was uncalled for, just wrong. The very people who are attacking him are themselves of questionable credentials. Mr. Kirchner is billed as some sort of health and safety expert, but only has some sort of environmental certification from Indiana or Ohio or somewhere out in the Midwest. Nothing in the state of Massachusetts. When questioned about the species of wood used in the steeple, they could not even answer the very basic question of what species of wood it was. As a matter of fact, they refused to have any other discussion on it. The diocese was ordered by the Vatican to protect that church, and they ignored an order from the Vatican. And lastly, on this, Neil Mitchell, who is a licensed professional engineer and structural engineer, has refuted most of the findings of Mr. Hunt. In regards to the imminent collapse of the steeple, this is from my own experience. The few timbers that show signs of cracking are most likely caused by drying and aging of the wood. They are not rotten. Steel channel could be bolted to either side, and we have seen this technique used in dozens and dozens of factories in Holyoke, subjected to tremendous stress loads of machinery and hundreds of workers on the floor. This is just a ridiculous assumption that they're making with nothing to back it up. Most of the pictures that they've showed of bricks and mortar do not depict any movement, just a washout of some of the mortar. And let me tell you, a lot of that mortar is being washed out because of the acidity of the pigeon droppings, which are encasing them. And these are hired guns putting out the desired results of the diocese. In summary, and I'll make this real brief, the order is complied with because they received the invitation to share their concerns directly with the city council. In my opinion, the fact that they refused to show up for the public safety meeting means they know the alleged safety concerns would not and do not stand up under scrutiny. They continue to ignore city ordinances, and I'll file more on that, on the blight ordinances that they continue to ignore.
Any other thoughts?
Mr. President, we could take a motion, accept a motion to send back to committee 20B and 20C.
How about, well, just before we do that,
sure,
vote
I'm
on
sorry.
20A. All in favor of adopting the recommendation of the committee, which is that this item has been complied with? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so moved. Okay, so 20A is adopted? Yes, sir.
A motion to send back to committee 20B and 20C, please.
Okay. Motion has been made and seconded to send back 20B and 20C. 20C, as I recall, was not complied with. C was adopt. So just in fairness, that the recommendation of the committee, I being one of the three people that voted, due to there being a quorum and therefore me needing to be there, I understand 20C was actually, we voted to adopt that, not it was complied with. So we're all crystal clear on that. 20B and 20A were complied with. In fact, I think one of them was given leave to withdraw, but nevertheless.
One of them was, that's why it's,
Yeah, so how did this get we can change that. If that's the reason we're sending it back, we can fix that right now. Because I can tell you for a fact, 20C was adopt. That was the one regarding the bird issue, if I recall correctly.
right, because Brian wanted us to.
He said Brian said he would take care of the bird one. And that
But
was.
apparently,
Me, you, and Michael voted to adopt that one. Has there been a change of heart, or why are we going back to committee?
There's been some new information on this.
New information.
Yeah, I was in communication with the building department today, and the diocese, through their attorney, refused to grant permission to enter the building. to inspect the problem.
I see. You still could adopt it. It's just, then it becomes, you're just asking them to do it, but, or you could send it back to committee and what do you seek to achieve by putting it back in committee? More discussion or?
Yeah, more discussion. I think we might come out of it with something a little stronger now that we know that the ordinances that they're violating.
You'd have to file probably more orders, though.
Yeah.
Okay. As you wish. Is this the?
I'm just,
You're just a messenger.
I'm just, he's the maker of the order, I'm just,
Sure.
you know.
So you're requesting that B and C go back to committee?
Correct.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
Seconded it.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded that 20B and 20C go back to the Public Safety Committee. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
So moved.
24A and P are done.
Okay. Yep, let's get those double checked, if you would be so kind, because it was not as it states on the committee jacket, I can tell you that for a fact. 21 was a Public Service Committee reports. We had none for this particular meeting. 22, relative to DGNR committee reports, we had none for this particular meeting. And 23, we had no Charter and Rules Committee reports. Brings us to Joint Committee on School Committee. We handled both of those items. We now move to the main section of the meeting, which is motions, orders, and resolutions, bringing us to item number 25, an order that introduced by Councilor LeBron Martinez, an order that the Ordinance Committee allow an additional handicap sign in front of Mass Surgical 249 High Street to make the current and handicap to each be a 1-hour parking limit.
And to make the current ones that are there already, there's two actually, but they're needing one right in front of it.
An ordinance, so you want us to do what exactly? Add
An additional, yeah, right in,
handicap spot.
right. And make the ones that exist already to be an hour parking. I guess there's concerns about individuals who work in the city or, in the area are parking there the whole day. And they're having a difficulty with their patrons coming in to,
Oh, you mean the ones that are handicapped?
yeah.
So they want to have 1-hour handicap parking? Okay.
Maybe, we did, can I, so we did that similar situation at Fernandez Restaurant because people were parking overnight and that really was not available for the usage. And it has a certain time of the day, but they're asking for an hour, for people to be able to park with like an hour limit of an hour limit. I don't know if it's been done, so.
Councilor McGivern.
I don't have we were referring to the Committee on Ordinance. I don't have a problem with it, but anybody with a handicap placard can park for free in any of the meter zones,
That's
any of
right.
the meter
right.
spots themselves.
To stay low.
And I would hope that the people who work downtown, if, they need a space, if they can't do something off the street, would be considerate to the store owners like Mass Surgical. Because I understand that that's what was happening over near Fernandez and the Caledonian Building. But if it's a two-edged sword. We need to be able to allow shoppers who are handicapped to have good parking spaces. They can park anywhere and not have to pay. But at the same time, we have to be careful and honor and help out people who work downtown. But hopefully we can do that maybe in the back of the building if they're from DCF, in that parking lot.
Question becomes more one of where do we need specific spots for handicap to have closest access to a certain point? Because otherwise, the handicap can park anywhere they want there without
Right.
paying for the meter already.
The address is right in front of it. They're asking 249 right in front of it, so.
Right. Okay. Counselor Greenie?
Yeah, Mr. President, for the people that use that facility, that Mass Surgical Supply, I think the idea behind this ordinance, and correct me if I'm wrong, Counselor LeBron Martinez, is that people that go into Mass Surgical Supply that are disabled or handicapped, that they have a place where they can park to go in and do their business and then leave the premises and go and open up that parking space for the next person or vehicle that comes in that uses that facility. And I think that's probably what we're talking about here, because if somebody parks in there for a period of all day, then the people who are using Mass Surgical Supply to go in there and shop and do their business, they don't have access to that parking place.
We could talk about this in
Well,
committee.
Yeah.
Second.
It should be noted, he already has one handicap spot. I don't know how many more he needs. Counselor
I'm
Leahy.
just asking if I could be put onto the order as well.
Sure. I think Counselor Leahy as a co-sponsor.
We just can send it to committee, that's
He's
what I
going to have
asked.
more
We'll send it to
handicap spots than
committee.
he has storefront. But on
I
the
don't-
motion
I
to
don't-
send to committee,
I've been asked and I'm doing.
all in
Thank you.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Item number 26 is an order introduced by Counselor LeBron Martinez, an order that an unmetered 15-minute, okay, so this is the same story, right?
Yeah, if I could be added to that as well.
Adding Counselor Leahy. An order that an unmetered 15-minute loading zone be allowed in front of Mass Surgical for loading and unloading. So he wants a loading zone, he wants 2 handicap spots, and he wants us to also start converting the metered spaces to 1-hour parking. That's a very interesting
I talked
request.
to DJ as well.
No.
I'm not exactly sure that's what he wants. DJ's willing to come in and talk at the subcommittee meeting.
Okay, yeah.
So let's just do that.
So just make sure he's invited, because we'll have some questions for him. So all in the favor of sending it to ordinance?
Aye.
Favor? So moved.
Let's go, McGee.
Okay.
Let's go package.
Got a package for us, Mr. McGee? 27.
7 through,
Can we suspend rules and take 27 up?
Sure. Okay. Yep, this one's always near and dear to my heart. Motion is to transfer $5,000 from election officers to ordinance codification, $5,000.
Make a motion to suspend the rules and take up this evening.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to suspend the rules and pass the first reading. Under discussion, Counselor McGee.
Well, make a motion to receive and adopt, pass first reading, or?
Yeah, we already did that.
We already did,
We're-
okay.
yeah, we're at
Just making
first
sure we're
reading.
All right, so really, as we all know, is we've been trying to get the Muni Code up to current status, and I think we are there. The issue is we have to pay for it. We have to pay the bill because we are so far behind. So we knew this was coming. We learned this before. It finally got the order on the agenda, so it's nothing new. It's what we took care of last time. So there's an outstanding bill that has to be paid. And I give credit to the clerk's office of getting it back up to,
So the 6,000 something we already paid, that just got us to a certain point? Okay. Because like I said, we have charter changes that have been made, we have some other things that's still not reflected on there yet.
well, we went,
Huh? The council president one was not on there. I looked on it about maybe 2 weeks ago. All right, I'll look. Yep. Okay. All right, so you heard that. Motion is to do this, to update the Muni Code in our ordinance books. $5,000. All in favor of passing the first reading?
Aye.
Opposed, so moved.
pass the second reading.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to pass the second reading. Any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll. A yes vote is in favor of adopting the $5,000 transfer request. A no vote is to deny it.
Valentine?
Yes.
Bresnahan?
Yes.
Graney?
Yes.
Jordan?
Yes.
Leahy?
Yes.
LeBron Martinez?
Yes.
Lisi?
Yes.
Lopez?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
McGivern?
Yes.
Roman?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tallman?
Yes.
Bacon?
yes.
Unanimous vote.
By your vote, you've approved the transfer request for our distinguished clerk's office.
Mr. President, 28 to 31 receive as a package, suspend the rules, send to finance.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to take items 28 through 31 as a package and to refer all of them over to the Finance Committee. All in favor of doing that?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. And we now have item, do we have any late files? Just one. Oh, okay. And item 32, we already took care of. Wow, I mean, just laser level of efficiency here. And we have one late file introduced by Councilors McGivern and Leahy, which is that the city council review and amend section 7.1.6 of the city zoning ordinance regarding drive-ins, takeout restaurants, consider amending the special permit for commercial drive-throughs and/or add a special permit for restaurant drive-throughs. Ordinance?
Yep.
Receive for the Committee on Ordinance.
Motion's been made and seconded to receive, refer to ordinance. All in favor of that?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. We have unfortunately no more items for you to consider.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion has been made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We stand adjourned. Have a wonderful evening.